are live.
Perfect, great. The time is now 5 o'clock, and we're going to call the Public Safety and Licensing Committee meeting to order on today, August 8th, 2022. The first thing on the agenda, if we just can note the roll, we are missing Chair McCarthy and Alderman Coe. And we do have an actionable item, which is approval of the minutes from July 11th meeting. So, committee, how do you wish?
Motion to move to approve.
We have a motion for approval.
Second.
We have a second. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes. Next item on the agenda is 0552-22 is communication sponsored by Mayor Mason and Alder McCarthy submitting an application for a Class B fermented malt beverage for C&K Enterprises, DBA, Sausage Kitchen, and it's located at 1706 Rapids Drive. And Christopher Miller, are you here? Wonderful. Would you please come sit right there? And then our attorney will swear you in.
Sure.
Okay.
Mr. Miller, would you raise your right hand, please? You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes.
Your application is before the committee today. You have an opportunity to present it. If you're in an early meeting, please don't speak or comment unless until the chair has given you the floor. You don't have the floor. Please mute yourself while the meeting is going, so that does not apply. Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. Welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for being here this evening. Can you tell us a little bit about this application we have before us today?
Trying to get the beer license for my work.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in business for some years, family business. I bought it for my folks, so
Okay.
I'm just doing the logistics stuff to get that going.
All right. Can you tell us a little bit more about why? With the liquor license, was this just a renewal or switching over?
It's a new ownership.
Oh, so you have to do that. Beautiful. Okay, can you tell us a little bit about your experience? Have you been working at this establishment for some time?
Yeah.
So quite a bit of experience.
Yeah. 25 years,
Oh my
43
goodness.
now.
Yeah.
Been working there since I was a little.
Wow. Another home away from home, it sounds like.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll open it up for committee members. Do you have some questions?
I don't. We read so you're pretty much just taking over from your dad, is that correct?
My grandfather opened it in 1958, so.
Really?
There, same spot for many, many, many years.
So now we're on the third generation.
Yeah.
Well, it's a pleasure meeting you, and yeah, I live right over there, so I don't hear of any complaints, even though it's not my district, it's my neighboring district, but no complaints have come through. I appreciate that, so you're doing a good job. Can you just state for the record just your hours?
Tuesday through Saturday, 6 a.m. till 2 p.m. and Sunday, 6 a.m. till 1 p.m.
Okay, so just so that's clear, that's when the alcohol would be sold, so I just wanted for that to be said out loud. Thank you so much. Okay, with that, if there is no more questions, we would need a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion to approve and a second. Those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. And any opposed? There was none. Okay, that was it.
That's it.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in. This does have to go to the city council, and that date is
Tuesday.
next Tuesday. Okay.
And then I'll just get notification on what I have to do next, and at that point.
That's right. Will the clerk's office have some type of communication coming to him?
So assuming the council approves, and you have all of your department sign-offs from the building, health, salary department, then you would be issued a license in the city clerk's office. So they'll either mail it to you or they'll call you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night. All right, so we are on to 056122 communication sponsored by Alder McCarthy, submitting a renewal application for a 2022-2023 motor vehicle towing license, Jensen & Jensen, which is Jensen's Towing and Recovery, located on 2625 North Green Bay Road. and this is in the 6th district. And, all towing applications, renewals come before us? Okay. Is there, we do have an alder here that wishes to speak, but is there any other information that our committee needs to know?
Not on this license application.
Okay, very good. Committee, do you have any questions?
Nope.
Okay, and with that, I'm gonna, let, Alder Perez, who is with us today, speak on this.
Thank you. I have a concern with, Jensen Towing and Recovery. I've tried to contact them several times via their drivers. I have 2 in particular that park in my district. I used to have 3 when my district extended to the, north of Kinsey. And they just park their vehicles in front of their properties, a lot of times leave them running. The ordinance that we have in the city says that you cannot have a vehicle over 10,000 pounds parked on city streets. And all their vehicles, but via the tag, when they're checked, are over 10,000 pounds because they're all tow trucks, and basically long bed tow trucks. So I like the folks. They're not troublemakers or anything in particular, but I do get other neighbors who complain that that truck is leaking oil on the road and, you know, too heavy for the road and those kinds of things. And so my concern is that I've tried to reach out to Jensen via the drivers, and they say, yeah, but our boss tells us to park it at our house because that's where we have access. There's no place near the house, in my district, where you can park a vehicle other than at the former Shopko parking lot. And that previously came up before us too, and the owners of that property actually posted no parking signs because of that. So, since they're not necessarily a troublemaking organization for us, I would like to see if we or the city or the clerk can send a not so subtle reminder that parking within city limits, if the vehicle is over 10,000 pounds, is against our ordinances. And that they should figure out a way to get their drivers to their vehicles without having to run all night and leak oil on our streets in the neighborhood and residential areas.
Thank you for bringing that up. I'm just curious if, our police liaison can speak. Isn't that a ticketed item or action that can be taken?
It would be a citation, yeah.
Yeah. So have the police been called, to
At
your
night,
knowledge?
yes, they have, because it makes a lot of noise. Not recently. It's been a couple of years since I've done it. I
Okay.
just started getting complaints again. But like I said, these are good neighbors. The guy is a hardworking guy.
Yeah.
And I just want to and when I tell him, hey, you can't park here, he says, well, the company tells me to park here. You know, and I don't want him to get a ticket, but we do need to let know, Jensen know
Yeah.
that what they're asking of their drivers is incompatible with our statutes. And so I'm wondering if we could make an annotation in this particular file that they get an express written notice saying, just a reminder that any vehicle over 10,000 pounds cannot be parked within residential areas within the city. And I think that at least will help, because if they do get another complaint, I can just say, hey, you know, Jensen, you were told, you know, here's where it goes. And I don't want to see, because the driver gets the ticket, not the company. So I don't want to see the drivers getting the tickets if they're not the ones at fault. So I don't know, is there a mechanism in place that we could charge the company when their drivers do that instead of the drivers themselves? You know?
So because this issue is more of an enforcement issue rather than related to the towing license, I think the appropriate avenue is really to send this either to the police department or to the city attorney's office. Often when we have received complaints such as this, I'll work with the police department. They'll go out there and investigate if it is an issue. The police department can either cite, or the city attorney's office can send a warning letter, letting them know exactly what the parameters are for doing that. So we certainly have that, but it's unrelated to this license application.
Oh, okay. And so I'm just saying, it's because it's a license application and they're in violation of the law constantly, at least with these two particular vehicles.
But do they have
I mean,
any,
that's
like,
really-
records of it? Have people been called, and then have they gotten any citations? Like, is there a record besides someone complaining to you that, they are not in compliance with the ordinance? Like, do we have, like,
In the past, there has been,
in the past, but not.
but not recently that I'm aware of. Again, the neighbors are saying, hey, they're good people, but you know, that noise drives us crazy in the middle of the night, because it's like a diesel
Hmm.
vehicle, you know, it's running. And so, I'm wondering if, do I need to request that as the city attorney's office, or can I do that via you, Attorney Hearn?
I have noted it. I will follow up with you, Alder Perez, on the specifics of that complaint, and then I will work with the police department to, enforce that.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Alder Peterson, did you have a question?
Nope, I think it was covered.
Okay. Did you have another question?
No.
Okay. Perfect. So with that, this is another actionable item.
Move to approve.
Thank you. We have a motion for approval on this item.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. There was no nays. It has passed. Thank you for coming to this meeting, Alder Perez, and,
Thank you.
filling us in. Okay, so next on the agenda is 0209-22, which is communication sponsored by Alder Cove requesting the appearance of Brett Green for an operator's license. And this was, somebody who's gonna be working in the 4th. We deferred it on 4/11, and we deferred it on 5/9, and then we deferred it on 7/11. Is Brett with us?
No, he is not.
Okay. So I think the appropriate motion for this is to receive and file. Is it deny or receive and file? Deny.
Make a motion to deny.
Okay, there has been a motion to deny,
Second.
and it's been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
No opposed. It passes. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is 0488-22, communication sponsored by Alder McCarthy requesting to adopt ordinance 008-22, qualifications for operator's license, false statement denial. Attorney New, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mhm.
Madam Chair, this item is related to the next two items on the agenda. This specifically has to do with ordinance that was mentioned as part of the policy guidelines, that went before this committee last meeting. The ordinance, if you take a look at the red line version, it's a lot easier to understand the changes that are being made. But as I explained last week, because we are changing the policy guidelines, it does make sense to change the ordinance at the same time to make sure that they are all consistent with one another. So just briefly, I'd like to go over the changes that are in there. It's on page 28 of your packet, it starts the red line version. So the first change on there is under sub A, sub 1, sub B. And that's the felony conviction. You can see that the first part in the B, pending charges, is crossed out. That's because it just appears under the felony conviction. It was just changed to be consistent with state statute, so that's the only change under pending convictions, pending charges, I'm sorry. So the felony conviction was moved up from the section under, that was unchanged really, it just moved positions. And then after that, under sub 2, you see the substantive changes to the procedural, the process that we currently have in place that matches the guidelines. So this, again, would allow the city clerk to deny a license to an individual who has any of these convictions up above under sub 1A. And if the person does have a conviction, it would allow the city clerk to grant a license for anyone who doesn't have any of these convictions. If they do have any of these convictions, all of the appeals would go to the committee and only upon the request of the applicant within 10 days. Are really the only changes to this ordinance.
Thank you for walking us through that. Committee members, do you have any questions? Okay, if we want, we can take that one up now, and, I would just ask for a motion. All right, there's been a motion to approve and
Second.
adopt the new policy, okay, and a second as written. All right, any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. And no opposed. So we can move to the next item, 0347-22. Communication sponsored by Alder McCarthy on behalf of the city clerk requesting to adopt a new policy and procedure on record checks for renewal liquor establishments.
Madam Chair, I would ask that you take up the next item at the same time because they are related and on the same,
Okay.
document.
I will just go ahead and read that then for record, knowing that we're discussing it. And that is 0348-22, communication sponsored by Alder McCarthy requesting to update policy guidelines relating to record checks to conform current ordinance procedures. All right, thank you.
Thank you. So the committee met at the last meeting to discuss the changes we wanted to see in the policy guidelines. I did incorporate all of the changes into this document here, so I can briefly go over the changes. If you have the version in front of you that is highlighted in yellow, that's probably the easiest, or you can click on the online link that will take you to it, but I will also note, what is highlighted for your benefit, Madam Chair.
Great.
It will start on page 36 of your packet.
Okay.
So, under the purpose section, what I did there was really take a lot of the definition of substantially relate and put it into the purpose section. It just made a lot more sense because this entire policy guideline is to really let a person know what type of offense is substantially related to the business of selling alcohol and what the committee and the council deems important enough to deny a person based on their arrest and conviction record. That's why I moved it there. So if you take a look at the entire purpose section, it's just expanded a little bit, but none of that is really new. Any questions about that?
I think that's very helpful. I'm glad that you did that. That's really helpful,
Glad to hear that.
especially for new members that would come aboard on this committee as well, so. Okay,
So if you go all the way to page 8, under procedure, and under that, it states background checks generally. It clarifies that the Racine Police Department would conduct background checks both for operator's license and retail licenses, renewal and new license every other year at the very least. Also discussed at the last meeting, so it's just in there. Under process for retail alcohol license, currently when you do have a retail alcohol license, and this would be any class A, Bs, or Cs, you don't have a cover sheet for any individuals who may have a background check. So this would change with this new policy. For new applications, the police department would get that background check. They would fill out a form, a cover sheet as well. For any individual who has a background check, it'll state whether they are disqualified and under which guidelines. And then for renewal applications, the city clerk's office would get this information, and if there is a new conviction within the last 2 years, they would also fill out a cover sheet, but either way, it would go before this committee so that you would see that not just for operator's license, but also for retail license as well.
thank you.
Turn the page over. The guidelines, there is a total of 7 guidelines. I just put a heading on top of the first guideline, clarifying that that guideline is the only one that's applicable to operator's license. So under operator's license, you have guideline number 1, which again was discussed last week and also in the ordinance that was in the item before you, the agenda item before you. So none of that has changed. It is consistent. It would be consistent with the ordinance. And then after that, you see guidelines for all retail alcohol beverage license. So that's guideline 2 through 6. In a few of the guidelines, I took out, and all of the guidelines were applicable, I took out the words arising out of separate incidents, as discussed last week. That's just a very difficult thing to enforce. From a practical standpoint, it's hard to identify and hard to really pull that out from looking at a background check result from NCIC. Under guideline number 4, A specifically, The previous language in there also prohibited disorderly conduct, criminal damage to properties, and solicitation of prostitution, but it stated that it would have to be at places that were licensed or should be licensed under Chapter 125. I took that language out because it has been very difficult to identify when an incident took place at a licensed premises or should have taken place at a licensed premise. So it's really almost impossible to enforce the way it was written. So I just removed that language. So as it is currently drafted, anyone with any of those violations, 2 or more of those violations within the last 5 years would be disqualified from a license. Under sub E, that was modified to remove the .08. It states any offense that involves operating a motor vehicle with a prohibited alcohol concentration. It used to say a prohibited alcohol concentration of .08. I took out the 08 because in certain circumstances for commercial drivers, for example, it's a .02 limit rather than a .08, so it didn't cover all of the alcohol concentrations that were prohibited, so I just took that language out. Under sub F, Alderman McCarthy raised this point last week that it seemed inconsistent with the statute, so I just changed the language around a little bit to make sure it was consistent with the statute, but substantively there are no changes under that one. Under guideline number 5, this was also discussed last week for habitual law offenders, that it would include not only persons with a certain arrest record, but it would also include persons deemed by the Racine Police Department to be a habitual law offender based on the person's arrest record. And lastly, under the next page, under false statement on any license application, as discussed by the committee, wanted to modify the false statement, essentially to prohibit anyone from making a false statement regarding a misdemeanor or felony conviction within the last 10 years for that person to be disqualified for a license. So that's what the language states now. Those are really all of the changes that were posted from the last meeting. But I also wanted to address the next section with the committee under evidence of rehabilitation or fitness. This was not discussed last week, but I do think the committee may want to either consider these changes or not consider making any changes. But I think it should be discussed. What is sufficient evidence of documentation or of rehabilitation? I know this committee has often struggled at times when an applicant states that they are rehabilitated as to what is required. Is documentation required? Is documentation required at a specific time? Is it just a letter of reference? What sort of documentation are you looking for? If you do want to solidify some of these changes, we can certainly put it in place to make sure that the results are a little bit more consistent. So I'm not sure what the committee would like to do. Yes.
Are you aware of what other municipalities, are there any examples you could give that you find to be more appropriate or more?
I have not checked with other municipalities specifically on this issue. However, I do think that the committee should, at the very least, if you do require documentation, that you're consistent every single time. So you certainly don't have to state exactly what documentation, because I think that's very difficult. Every person is different. But if you do require documentation, you should put that in writing, make sure that it is required from every single person who comes before you. And you make sure that it is required and it's submitted to the city clerk's office before it gets to you, so that the person isn't appearing before you stating they are rehabilitated and grant the approval just based on that person's word.
Right. One of the issues comes where, what if somebody get a letter saying they're rehabilitated if they've served their time and if they've met all the requirements?
So,
allowed in?
under state law, there are two forms that the committee has to accept as competent. The first one is really a document from the Department of Defense showing that the person was honorably discharged, doesn't have any subsequent convictions. The second one is a release document from the Department of Corrections showing that the person has completed probation or extended supervision and that at least 1 year has passed since his release from an institution, and that they have been, not been convicted of any subsequent crime. So those are specifically listed in the state statute, and that's in the letter that is sent out to each applicant. But in addition to that, there are factors that are in the policy guidelines that would guide this committee, and that would include, so evidence regarding the nature and seriousness of the offense, evidence regarding the circumstances, the age of the individual, the length of time. It also states letters of reference by a person who have been in contact with the individual since the any local, state, or federal correctional institution. So letters of references certainly are mentioned specifically in the statute. So even if they don't have a letter that states, I've been rehabilitated, they should be able to get some sort of letter of reference from an individual that has known them since their release, and that would be sufficient. I don't think that's unreasonable to require at least some form of documentation. Each person comes before you.
Okay. So would your suggestion be, or your way of thinking being that if somebody can provide something from the Department of Corrections, that would be appropriate? Or are you thinking that as well as a reference? What do you think?
So state law states that if there's a letter from the Department of Corrections, that alone is sufficient. In addition to that, the other letters of reference is what the committee can consider above and beyond.
Okay.
And I think a lot of these bullet points are things that we have taken into consideration through our process
Right.
before it was laid out quite like this, so.
But you would like something more in writing, so it's not subjective.
Right, because the guidelines actually state the committee shall consider other documented evidence of rehabilitation. So if you don't want the word documented in there, or you don't require documentation every time, then I suggest taking it out. But if the committee wants to stick with the guidelines as written, then I would suggest that you do require documentation from every single who appears before you, whatever that documentation is.
Would it, so,
Yes, please.
would it be okay, could you send a letter to Chairman McCarthy, or to all of us, I guess? So, I mean, we could have a discussion, so they know what's going on, being that they're not here. And we could bring it up in a knowledgeable way, in a meaningful way next meeting. I hate to do anything today without having the chair and Alder Coe here, but I very much understand where you're coming from, and I agree with you.
Right. I would recommend avoid sending a letter because there might be a walking quorum issue.
Okay.
So you can certainly defer this until the next meeting if you'd like to discuss it with the full committee. I would recommend that.
So that item in particular falls under, is it 034822?
Let me find it.
Yes.
So what we could do is go ahead, if we wanted to, or both items can be deferred, or we can go ahead and make a motion to adopt the new policies and procedures for the record checks and renewals for the liquor establishments. So that was the first item. We did combine these two, so that is an option for this committee. And then the next committee, if we would like, hopefully we'll have a full committee. We can then bring up the second item and just focus on that particular language or that section.
For the evidence of rehabilitation, we will defer. Is that correct?
We would have to defer the full agenda item 034622. 822. How does this committee wish to move forward? You want to separate them or keep them together? I will just note for consideration. The first item, 0347-22, all of this was discussed, and this is the language that the attorney worked on to match our discussion. This is, the evidence area is the new presentation to us. Is there any further discussion, or are we ready to make a motion? Let's, how would we like to act on 0347-22?
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve,
Second.
and we have a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. And there is no opposed. Now, 0348-22. Did I say that for the first one? I think I said 4722. Okay. How do we wish to proceed with that one?
So which one was it, the
0348-22, this is the
Okay.
second one.
That's the second, move to defer that item.
We have a motion to defer to our next scheduled Public Safety and Licensing Committee. Okay,
Second.
it has been seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
No opposed. It's been deferred. Next item on the agenda is 0507-22, the City of Racine Police Department Liaison for consideration of the license premise report and any formal expressions of concern pursuant to it. You have the floor.
Nothing, really pops out. Joyce on Taylor had, several calls. What's the last one? Oh, okay. Nothing from the last one.
Okay.
One from Joyce on Taylor.
That's the next.
Next one, all right, so, all right, sorry. Let me go back. So nothing, no concerns?
No concerns for the last one.
All right, that would be 522-72? Okay. Already looked at that one.
I don't-
We did, but I was zoomed in, and then,
Oh, that's right.
knocked
Yes,
out.
we
Okay.
did.
Couldn't finalize it.
Yeah. All right, very good. Thank you. Does the committee want to pull anything out on that one? All right, so we do have to, that is, an agenda item by itself. So how do we wish to proceed?
See file.
Okay, it has been motioned to receive and file.
Second.
It's been seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposed. 0577-22, communication sponsored by Alder McCarthy on behalf of the City of Racine Police Department Liaison for consideration of license premise reports and any formal expressions of concerns pursuant to it. And this is going to cover July 2nd to August 4th.
Now.
Okay.
Nothing of major concern, like I was about to say, Joey's on Taylor, had 4 calls for service. 2 of them look like they might be related. We were called out there, for one incident. When we got out there, we couldn't locate anyone fighting or any argument. But then later on in the early morning hours, it looked like possibly a victim, showed up at the hospital with a stab wound on their wrist or arm area. So, in doing some investigation, it looked like maybe the previous time that we were out there was related to this victim going to the hospital. Nothing major, like I said. They're usually not on our report, so I'll kind of keep an eye on them, over the next month and just see how they're handling it. The one call, they did call police for assistance, so it's not like they're never calling. I think the biggest concern was with the fight, they kind of just pushed everyone outside, it continued outside, and then it kind of escalated from there. So, something for us just to definitely keep an eye on, and I will, I'll forward this to, third shift commander and let him be aware of that as well.
Like, yeah, those 3 calls of service on July 31st look like they're all related.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. Mhm.
Movies, I will bring up just because it was brought to my attention.
Yep.
By several people. That got sent to, a traffic investigator to follow up on. It was a crash that occurred. During the crash, they identified the, person who, was to blame was 20 years old. And witnesses said that this person had been at Doobies. So traffic investigator did some research, and pulled video and did discover that the person was at the bar and was drinking while in the bar. Investigation is still ongoing, but the bar was issued citations for that. So I can't comment a whole lot at this time because it still is ongoing, but that's kind of the basis for that call that you see at the end on the 3rd.
So that's something we can, instead of just receiving and file this, is that something, can we receive and file this, but still, after the investigation's brought back, we can look at it again, or how is this?
So if you ask the police department to keep you updated, Sergeant Ortiz would bring it back to your attention when he has more information.
So I just want to note for record, because I know we do have, an individual sitting in the audience. I'm not sure if we have 2, if you guys are together. So, the committee, typically when there's an investigation currently ongoing, we wait for the conclusion of that investigation to be able to act on it, and then we're better informed. So I just wanted to note that, maybe after this committee ends, we'll be able to have a discussion with you a little bit, but, we really don't have an action item currently right now to have some back and forth. So, I don't think that would be a good time to do that. I'm just looking to make sure I'm getting proper guidance, just because if we're not going to bring it up, to pull the public in, to have public comment. Wouldn't that have to be if we pull it, if we're going to be speaking, we pull like Doobies in or something like that, then we can have the public speak on it?
You can certainly wait, but the ordinance does allow the chair to permit public comment from members of the public specific to an agenda item. So if you use an item as part of the license premise report, you can certainly hear comment. It may not be the appropriate time for the committee to have a discussion, but certainly you can hear comments.
Yeah. So maybe let me just to maybe put that out there for us to decide, even though I'd have the final one. Being that this committee, we cannot make any actionable item at this time, it would be great if at the time that we do discuss and we can go forward with it, if you would like to speak on that item, we could definitely alert you to come back.
I will make that very much
Wonderful. Okay, so with that, that was our last, item on our agenda. If we have the committee members, wanting to pull out anything else to discuss, we can do that now. If not,
No.
okay, if not, we would need to make a motion to receive and file.
Motion to receive and file.
Okay, it's been motioned and it's been seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And there was aye, no opposed. Okay, with that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded to adjourn, and we are adjourning at the time of 5:40. Thank you. Okay.